A struggling writer is given some smart boy pills and becomes the next Jeff Bezos. Also, he's being hunted by some Russians. We begin with some loud-ass banging at the door. Uh-oh, it seems someone is trying to break into another man's apartment. That should be illegal. We then see multiple dead guys and then we meet our main protagonist Eddie about to jump off a building. As he is about to do a 360 off the edge, he notices his neighbor getting shot. This gives our boy enough courage to jump down into a title card. We cut to some time in the past where we see Eddie looking a little worse for wear, smoking a cigarette. Apparently he's a writer, and we see him giving his book ideas to some people at a bar, but it doesn't work out that well. And then there's a scientist guy who turns himself into a pickle. Funniest shit you'll ever read. Okay. We later see Eddie at home attempting to write a new book, but is having trouble getting motivated. As we can see, he is just living it out. After that masterful performance, we cut to Eddie talking to his girlfriend Lindy, who is doing a reverse proposal and breaking up with him. Bruh. This surprises Eddie, who wants her to stay, and he attempts to propose, only to be shut down and reminded that his previous marriage sucked. Lindy leaves and Eddie is sad and alone. As he goes home, he bumps into some people on the street, but then suddenly gets recognized by his ex-wife's brother Vernon, who invites him for a drink. As they talk, Vernon says that Eddie's ex-wife Melissa had kids and her boyfriend left her. Vernon then changes the subject and asks Eddie about a book he's working on. Eddie says he isn't getting many ideas. This statement gives Vernon an idea. Uh-oh, this doesn't sound good. He tells Eddie that he got a hookup with a pharmaceutical company that made an FDA-approved pill that can make you think good. Eddie doesn't think it would help, but Vernon interrupts him with a phone call. Vernon suddenly has to leave, but before he does so, he leaves Eddie a pill. Eddie still doesn't want it, but Venom counters his statement with,
"Don't be ungrateful. You know how much that costs? $800.
Yay, peer pressure. We cut to Eddie walking home, still sad about getting dumped. Deciding that he has nothing left to lose, he pops the pill. He returns home, only to get bitched at by a random bimbo. Suddenly, it dawns on Eddie that he has no idea what's inside the pill he just took, or what the effects are, but suddenly, sees himself. Hold up. Suddenly, we see what it's like to have a brain blast. Damn, so that's what it feels like to be Jimmy Neutron. He begins tuning out the lady who is still yelling at him and starts tripping balls. Eddie then comes to and diffuses the argument. Yo, do you go to law school? I could just tell from the corner of your book. I am so turned on right now. The two begin to fornicate after a short study session. Eddie returns home and realizes he lives like crap and proceeds to break the time barrier by cleaning his house all at once. Suddenly, he realizes that the drug gave him OCD and ADHD, but the good kind. Eddie then starts typing so hard on his computer that words begin to fall from the sky. Later, Eddie wakes up realizing the drug wore off. He also noticed that he got a fuck ton of his book done. Hell yeah, all thanks to the power of drugs. He turns in the book to his publisher, who is surprised he actually made progress on his book. Eddie returns home, only to find out that he received a voicemail from her saying she loved the book. He almost calls her back, but thinks for a moment and decides to visit Vernon for more of that good stuff. Eddie knocks on Vernon's door, and he answers it, looking like he met a guy on Craigslist. Eddie wants to know what went down, but Vernon avoids the question. He then decides to shift his questions towards the drug, to which Vernon reveals that the pill wasn't actually FDA approved and was made by some sketchy people. Bruh, imagine lying about drugs. This new info doesn't seem to faze Eddie, however, who still wants more of the drug. Vernon accepts, however on the condition that Eddie fetches his dry cleaning and gets him some food first. Wow, manual labor for payment in the form of drugs? Sounds a bit sussy. Eddie goes along with it anyways, and after getting his stuff, comes back only to find the door open. Eddie walks in and finds Vernon taking a forever nap on the couch. Eddie is understandably upset when he suddenly hears something move in the house. Eddie starts yelling and quickly calls the police. As he awaits their arrival, Eddie realizes that he still hasn't gotten his fix and starts searching the place to borrow some big brain pills. He can't find any and sits next to Vernon in defeat. Suddenly, he gets the idea to look inside Vernon's oven and finds the pills and some money in there. Damn, why would you put your pills in there? That shit's gonna burn. Suddenly, the 911 police arrive, causing Eddie to quickly stash the pills away into his pants. Nailed it. He lets the police in and gets assaulted, which is what millions of Americans feel every day. We then see Eddie at the station, who is being profiled by the police chief thinking Eddie was there to buy drugs off Vernon. Suddenly, he gets a call from Melissa and hands it to Eddie, who tells him that Vernon was involved in some shady business. Eddie wants to take this opportunity to meet with her. She declines and hangs up. Damn, cock-blocked by death. Eddie leaves the police station with some weirdo following him. He goes back home, counts some money, and pops a pill. He goes back outside with fish vision and gets an Inception-themed haircut. Eddie returns home and finishes his book in 4 days. He then learns piano in 3 days and develops a gambling addiction, except he's actually good at it. He's even learning new languages. Eddie proceeds to use his new vast knowledge and skills to play adult Twister with a random girl in the bathroom. He even attracts a crowd of smart people, where he gets approached by a business dude who offers him a job. Hell yeah, free job. Eddie then flies out to a beach with his new crew of smart friends and does some driving in a sick-ass car. Eddie states to himself that if he isn't doing anything productive, his brain feels like it might explode. He then solves this problem by jumping off a cliff. Eddie returns home after that, and after popping some pills, starts investing in stocks. He suddenly realizes that he needs more money to make an actual profit. Eddie believes that the next best course of action is to meet with a sketchy loan dude and ask him for money. Hey dude, I know we just met and all, but can I borrow some money? No, I don't like you. Yeah, but what if I told you I was really good at stocks? Why didn't you say that from the beginning? They go out to a park bench and the sketchy loan guy gives Eddie the fat stacks while telling him that if he doesn't pay him back, he will steal his Fortnite account. Man, this guy means business. Loan dude leaves and we later see Eddie upping his drug dosage so he can become a better investor. It's clear it's working as he's made 2 million smackaroos in 2 weeks. Eddie gets more job offers and a better credit score. He gets a meeting arranged with a businessman named Carl. Later, Eddie goes out on a date with his ex Lindy and impresses her by speaking Italian to the waiter. This impresses Lindy. Then they proceed to frick in numerous spots and Eddie asks her to move in with him. She likes the idea, but as they kiss, Eddie notices the sus guy from before stalking them. Wonder what his problem is. Eddie gets home and worryingly looks out the window while Lindy is just chilling on his bed. She wants him to rest, but Eddie isn't having it and investigates a hallway. He finds nothing and we cut to the next day. The business guy that helped him get the meeting tells him to be careful around Carl as he is quick to displease. But Eddie shrugs him off. Wow, way to be a douche. Suddenly, boss man Carl struts in and Eddie starts talking smart stuff to Carl, explaining that he is good at investing due to pattern recognition. Carl is heavily impressed by this. He hands Eddie a binder full of companies that he wants to invest in. Eddie looks over and says that none of these companies are good. Bruh. Eddie then suggests to Carl to meet him the next day to discuss business. Eddie gets dropped off at home and starts tripping balls. Eddie starts wandering around town and has no idea how he got there. Same. Eddie begins to do some zoomy stuff and ends up at a bar. He dances with some ladies and somehow ends up at a party where he wins over a crowd with some smart talk. Eddie notices that someone is following him, but he doesn't care and decides to bang a random lady. My man. Eddie then finds himself at a subway when he is approached by some random people who want to throw down. Eddie doesn't know how to fight, however, but then he remembers a scene from Rocky he watched a few years ago and kicks ass. Eddie then zooms onto a bridge, forgetting the last 18 hours of his life. Eddie returns home and wakes up to a package. He is about to pop another pill, but decides that he's too cool for drugs and puts it down. Eddie looks through some business files but doesn't understand it at all. He calls the businessman from before, telling him that he can't attend the meeting since he feels a bit sick. However, business dude isn't having it and demands him to attend. Eddie reluctantly agrees. He eventually arrives at the meeting place looking kinda sick. And not in the good way. Carl asks Eddie what he knows about a fellow businessman, but he doesn't know much about him. Carl starts explaining the businessman to him, but Eddie starts spacing out like an average high school student. Suddenly, Eddie notices the girl he slept with the night before on the news for being murdered. Damn, did he kill her with his fat Carl starts asking Eddie questions to which he is unable to respond to and goes outside to vomit. Eddie has seen better days. He returns home and begins to contemplate if he really killed the lady when he gets a voicemail from Melissa saying the pills are dangerous. He picks up the phone and asks her to meet. She agrees. Eddie then goes through Vernon's old notebook and finds his past clients. He decides to call them and see how they are doing. Turns out they're all either sick or dead. Ruh-roh. This experimental drug may be dangerous. Eddie calls the last number when suddenly he hears a phone ring from behind him. Turns out the final client was that sus guy that keeps following him. Eddie hangs up and tries to walk away, but it seems that he is being followed. He begins to run away with Sussy Boy right behind him. Eddie causes an accident and escapes into a taxi. Eddie manages to enter a cafe and meets with Melissa. She explains that she took the drug years ago, and two could understand the humor of Rick and Morty. But when she stopped taking it, she got sick. Eddie tells her that he took a lot and this concerns her. Melissa explains that after she stopped taking it, it kinda messed up her mind. She gives him the advice to lower the dosage of the drug, but to continue taking it or else he will die. As Eddie leaves, he is found by the loan guy, who beats him up because he wants his money back. Eddie wants to write him a check, but the loan guy isn't having it. He steals Eddie's smart boy pills. No, not my big-brained pills. Loan guy swallows the pill. Eddie later goes to the bank and withdraws some cash and returns it to the loan guy, who is just having the time of his life. Loan guy decides to leave him alone and leaves while Eddie drunkenly walks to his workplace and collapses. He crawls to Lindy and asks her to get him his drugs, which he explains the purpose of. She doesn't approve, but goes to fetch them anyway. Eddie seemed to have moved his stash to a special shell in her house without her knowledge. She finds the pills and calls up Eddie when she notices someone is following her. Uh-oh, it's the return of Sus Guy. She makes a run for it after the Sus Guy tries breaking into her cab and begs some strangers to help her. Ayo, can you guys help me? I'm being chased by some creep.
Hey man, leave her alone.
Nah, bruh. Lindy, once again, runs and hides between some rocks. She calls back Eddie and fills him in on what just happened. Eddie tells her to take the pill so she knows what to do. She obviously doesn't want to do it, but since she has no choice, she succumbs to peer pressure and pops the pill. The guy approaches her direction when suddenly Lindy can see herself. Trippy. She activates her spidey sense and makes a run for it while the susboy is in pursuit. She escapes to a nearby ice rink and right as the guy is about to stab her, Lindy smacks him with a whole-ass child. We later see her running to Eddie with the pills and gives him his fix. They go to a hotel and stay the night. The next day, Eddie apologizes to Lindy, who tells him that he isn't himself when he's on the pill. She also tells him that she doesn't want any part in Eddie's shenanigans, but Eddie manages to get her to stay by promising to drop the pill. In a couple months, probably, we then see Lone Guy chilling on the street waiting for Nick. Apparently, he wants more of his smart boy pills. Eddie decides to give him some to get Lone Guy to leave him alone. Eddie then chooses to ensure his safety by hiring 2 bodyguards to follow him around everywhere. He returns to Carl, who doesn't want to work with Eddie anymore, but quickly changes his mind after Eddie gives Carl some stock projections which are used to fire some workers in Eddie's company. Yay, I guess. Our boy Eddie is now a stockbroker and is taking a steady dose of the smart drug. He goes to a scientist and asks him to reverse engineer it for him so he can have an unlimited supply. The scientist is a bit skeptical, but Eddie promises $2 million, so the scientist agrees. We later see Eddie at a business dinner when he notices the detective from before. He tells Eddie that he is suspect for the murder of the girl he slept with. Eddie decides to hire a lawyer, which gets his case laid off for a bit. Wow, he's a really good lawyer. Back to another business meeting. Eddie gives some stock advice and later has a conversation with Carl on what he should do when he retires. They agree on Eddie leaving with $40 million. Nice. After this, Eddie returns to his hotel, which has been raided. Uh-oh, time to move to a more secure location. Eddie manages to get a pretty well secured house, which only cost him $8.5 million. Wow, kinda cheap. Eddie later on encounters the lone guy again, who asks for 20 pills by next week. Eddie responds with,
"Next week you can go fuck yourself."
classy. The lone dude threatens Eddie, but Eddie knows he can just buy his way out of his problem and walks away like a Chad. We later cut to Carl and Eddie speaking to the wife of a dying businessman. She tells them that he wants to deal with them, and she leaves. Not without Eddie noticing that she is hanging out with the sus guy that keeps following him everywhere. Uh-oh. They leave and we see Eddie go out to do his police lineup. After standing in front of a wall with some other dudes, it ends and the suspect doesn't suspect Eddie of doing the crime. Lucky him. However, on a more unlucky note, Eddie has a stalker. He goes to meet up with Carl, who tells Eddie that the businessman that they are dealing with is now in a coma. Suddenly, Eddie begins to feel a bit woozy and leaves to take his drug, only to realize that someone stole his stash. Damn it, not my smart pills. He returns to Carl and Eddie is given a package. Ooh, wonder what's inside. Oh, dang it, he got my order of freshly cut hands. Eddie goes back home and watches some news. However, the doorbell rings and someone starts pounding at his door. Wonder who that could be. Turns out it's the lone guy, and he brought his friends. Eddie tries to call someone for help, but finds out there's no service. Just use the Wi-Fi, bruh. Eddie decides the best course of action is to jump off the balcony to avoid dying slowly. And then he pussies out and tries to find his last special pill. He remembers that it's in the box and starts opening boxes trying to find it. After a bit, he finds his pill, but oh, Butterfingers. He drops it. The door then breaks open, and as Eddie tries to jump off the balcony again, he is stopped by the lone guy's friends. The lone dude tells Eddie that he is taking his pills wrong, and the better way to do it is to just inject them into your blood. How did he know that wouldn't just kill him? How did he test this out? I'm so confused. Eddie explains that he is out of pills, but Lone Dude doesn't believe him and tells his men to search for the pills. Lone Dude then explains to Eddie that he has started the company thanks to the pills, and now he's rich. While this happens, the Lone Guy's friends discover a safe and start cracking at it. Back to Lone Guy, after threatening to rearrange Eddie's guts, Eddie goes, "No you," and stabs Lone Guy. They struggle for a bit and they both pass out onto the floor. Eddie remembers that he is still going to die since he's off the pills now, but then remembers that Lone Guy injected the pill into his blood and begins slurping. Lone Dude's friends find some severed hands in the safe, giving off some rude gestures. Eddie then gets his high back and blinds one of the Lone Guys right as they discover a dead Lone Dude. Eddie then tries to escape, but gets caught and is choked by one of the Lone Guys. Kinky. Eddie attacks his attacker with the deadliest weapon known to man, a soap brush. He then tricks the blinded Lone Guy to shoot his friend and he goes down. Nice work. Blind Lone Guy starts shooting blindly and Eddie pushes a piano onto him. Yo, holy shit, he dead. Eddie leaves and sits down next to the sussy guy who keeps following him. Don't worry, he's cool now. We find out that the business dude stole Eddie's drugs, so Eddie sticks the sus dude on the businessman and reunites with his smart boy pills. A year later, we see that Eddie's books were a massive hit and that Eddie is now a senator. He meets up with Carl, who reveals that he knew about the smart pills for a while. He also informs Eddie that he got a scientist to reverse engineer the drug and is willing to supply Eddie with more if he keeps sharing his ideas with him. Carl walks outside and Eddie thinks for a bit. He follows him, and Carl explains that since Eddie's main supply of the drug just recently got shut down, he will die soon. However, Eddie hits him with the old switcheroo, saying that he made a new drug that doesn't kill him, and now he is off it safely. Despite this, Carl still wants to work with Eddie, but Eddie stands his ground and reveals that he still has heightened senses and threatens Carl with smart talk. Carl is shook and leaves. Eddie walks away like a badass and returns to Lindy and eats with her. Eddie then flexes on her by speaking Chinese to the waiter. Hey, did you know that by subscribing to Smerk, you can quickly become as big-brained as Eddie? Crazy, I know. Also, if you are interested in a recap about robbers breaking into a blind veteran's house, then click the video on the screen. Thanks for watching.